Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. It's good to be back here again. We had another webinar last week, and we'll have another one next week as well, too. During these webinars, you create them with your questions, and I try to respond as best I can. Usually I can come up with an answer, but sometimes I get stumped. So if you are here for a first time, the way that you wind up giving me your answer is you can go ahead and write it to me. And there's a chat box over on the right-hand side of your screen. Go ahead and write your question in that chat box and hit enter only when you complete the whole question, because each time you hit enter, it sends a separate question to me, all right? I try to take no more than one question per person. Sometimes I will be able to do two questions. Usually I'm not able to get through all the questions that are here, so we'll do as many as we can tonight. I also am creating a recording of the webinar tonight, and that will be available to you tomorrow morning. I usually try to put an email together with a link to that recording that you'll get somewhere between around 6:30 in the morning Seattle time if everything goes as planned. Every now and then when I try to edit the video to shorten it down just a little bit, sometimes those edits aren't complete by 6:30 in the morning, but I'll try my best to get that done after the webinar tonight too. So during the webinar tonight, for those of you that are attending, and actually I just learned this is a new version of the webinar platform. It used to be that I would be able to show the question that each person is writing, and then I would read it. And only those that were attending the live webinar could actually see the written version on their screen. But evidently, under the new version of this webinar platform, it now shows up in the recordings. I just realized that last week. But I'm still going to read them anyhow, just in case we've got somebody that is not able to read the smaller print that's going to show up on your screen. All right. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. All right, so this first question is from Oscar. Hello, Oscar. Hi, Dr. Ross. I want to purchase the Lyme and Bart herbs on your website. I also take a lot of the supplements from your website. Is it okay to take these with the new herbs? Let's see. How about with ivermectin or diflucan? Also, I've been abstaining from alcohol the last year. Okay to have a few drinks with and I think there may be a second part to your question here. Let me just see. Nope, don't see a second part. All right. So I think what Oscar is referring to when he says the Lyme and Bart herbs is he's talking about the herbal antibiotics that I recommend herbally to kill those germs. So for Lyme, my favorite two herbs are Otoba bark extract and cat's claw. They're manufactured by a manufacturer named Nutrimetics, and they're named, the cat's claw made by Nutrimetics is Cemento, and the Otoba bark extract is a product called Banderol. In my experience, those two herbs work about 85 to 90% of the time to treat Lyme effectively, which is the same chance I give prescription antibiotic regimens to. All right. And then the other herb that I like often using for Bartonella is something called Houtunia. I like to pair it with Sida acuta. The Houtunia I do carry on our website. The Sida acuta I don't. But anyhow, so yes, Oscar, in terms of your first part of your question, the various supplements that I usually recommend that you'll find in my successful treatment recipe, my treatment protocol, for instance, and that I recommend for other conditions, mix very well with the Sida acuta, Houtunia, Otoba bark extract, and the cat's claw. Okay, no problem at all there. Are they okay to take with ivermectin and diflucan? Yep. Diflucan, everyone treats yeast. Ivermectin is an anti-parasite medicine. And then let's see. Also, I've been abstaining from alcohol for the last year. Okay to take to have a few drinks. Yeah, I try to limit alcohol. The reason I try to tell people to limit alcohol is Lyme, when it's in you, releases toxins. Okay, those are neurotoxins. They affect how your brain works. All right. And alcohol is, guess what? A neurotoxin. So I usually suggest to people, don't dump more toxins in, all right? So for instance, I recommend people be on organic foods because The organic foods tend not to have toxins attached to them that may impair how your body is able to work and how your immune system is able to work. Okay, but an occasional alcohol drink I think is okay. So to answer that part of your question, all right. So everyone, if you're wondering what do I recommend to treat Lyme, what is this protocol that Oscar might be following, or that I just mentioned? Let me just do a quick screen share. I think many of you may be familiar with it, but in case not, I'm just going to show you where you can find it. Lyme book, which is located at treatlyme.net. This is my Lyme disease information site. In here is a treatment protocol. You'll see the tab right up there. That's the treatment protocol. And this is my successful treatment recipe. This is my guideline on the steps you should take to treat Lyme disease, all right? And so if you look down here, I make recommendations about sleep. I give you recommendations about a diet. I prefer to have people be on something called a paleo diet. I recommend things to lower inflammation chemicals called cytokines, and I like using curcumin. I like people to be on something that helps their body deal with stress, and that's an herb called ashwagandha. Anyhow, read through here. You're going to see these are the essential steps that I recommend everybody address during their Lyme treatment, during and at the beginning and throughout treatment. And as you can see, there's many herbs, okay? For those of you that also are not familiar, I also have written an extensive number of articles about Lyme disease, and you can find these organized into chapters. I'm just clicking on that chapters tab right there. So if you have questions about what can you do to increase your energy, for instance, you'd go into the chapters and you'd hit this button about energy and fatigue. And I've got articles about herbs you can use to increase your energy as well, too. Okay? All right. Let me go back here. Oh, well, actually, let's see here. Where are we? There we are. All right. Still learning how to use this new platform. It has changed just a little bit. So if I seem a little slow moving around, that's why. I know it probably still looks pretty much the same from your end, but it has changed on my side of things here. All right, Oscar, thank you for that question. Get rid of that. All right. This next question is for Kit. Hold on, I got to do something with my lighting here. Just a second. I have found if I don't flip those blinds, the color keeps going in and out. There's a lot of changing of the color unless I do that. So that's why I just did that. All right. So hello, Kit. Let's see. Dr. Ross. Even with most of my symptoms gone, I still twitch when resting. It seems like magnesium makes them worse. What can I do? I've taken an antibiotic for Bart and Lyme. So twitching can sometimes be due to magnesium deficiency, okay? But magnesium makes yours worse, so yours probably is not due to magnesium deficiency. Twitching often can be associated with active Lyme or Bart, but you're doing better, so we have to presume that they're probably doing better. The other thing that can sometimes happen is twitching can be a neurologic symptom, where a nerve that is agitated from having been injured by Lyme, for instance, or injured by Bartonella, is sending random signals to the nerve or to the muscle, causing it to twitch. All right. One of the things that you might want to try for this would be to try the herb called L-theanine. That's L-theanine, Theanine. Theanine is a chemical that is found in green tea, and it's not caffeine. Okay, I want to be clear about that. So it's not stimulating you, but what it is it's turned in the brain into a chemical called GABA. And our brain is full and our nerves are full of GABA receptors. And if you give more GABA to a GABA receptor, it can calm an agitated nervous system down or agitated nerves down. So you might want to try that. It's a 100 milligram pill. I would take it as 1 to 3 pills 3 times a day. You could give that a try. Just be aware that as you're starting it, I would start low at 1 pill 3 times a day. See how that goes. If that's not good enough, then you can bump it up It could make you just a little bit sleepy each time that you go up, but usually the body will adapt to that, okay? So it's L-theanine, L-theanine, Theanine, Theanine, 100 milligram pill, okay? And that's what I would suggest doing for that kid. Give it a try and see what that does. Good luck to you. Thank you for that question. Hello, Jane. Let's see here. What is the prescription diagnostic code for Alinea? My new LMD says she cannot prescribe Alinea for me because she does not have a diagnostic code. I have been on Alinea for Babesia with my previous LMD and it has helped my symptoms. Okay. So everyone, Alinea is an anti-parasitic medicine that was designed to treat parasites in the intestines. And it's known as an anaerobic, meaning treats parasites that don't need oxygen, okay? So I will use it to treat people that I think may have parasites in the intestines. The Lyme germ is an anaerobic bacteria. It's a bacteria that doesn't require oxygen. And the mechanism by which Alinea works probably helps with Lyme as well, too, although we don't have any Petri dish experiments. But it probably should work on cyst Lyme and spirochete Lyme. And so I will sometimes use it if nothing else is working for my Lyme germ treatments, all right? Now, as a Babesia agent, I know some of my colleagues will use it to treat Babesia, but I'm not clear if it works. And what I would question, Jane, is if maybe it has helped your Lyme, not so much your Babesia. I'm going to answer your full question here, but let me just make this comment. So the reason I question if it really works against Babesia is I haven't seen any studies that say it does, all right? People are using it for Babesia because Babesia is a parasite and Alinea is an anti-parasite medicine, all right? But remember I said it's an anaerobic anti-parasite medicine. It works, its mechanism is that it works on germs that don't require oxygen. Well, guess where Babesia lives? Babesia lives in your red blood cells where it's rich in oxygen, all right? So Babesia is not an anaerobic germ, it's an aerobic germ. So the Alinea, I know some of my colleagues try it. I haven't had great success using it as an antiparasitic for Babesia, but if you're getting benefit, it may be because it's helping the Lyme germ, all right? Now, it's expensive as you know what, all right? And a 3-week course of this stuff can run upwards of about $1,200 to $1,300, for instance, all right? It's a pill you take twice a day. And because of that, insurance does not like to pay for it, and often they will block it. So, in terms of what your doctor is saying, what she's probably is saying is that to prescribe, she needs the diagnostic code for the condition you're treating. Alinea itself does not have a diagnostic code, but when we prescribe something, if insurance says, I don't want to pay for that, and we have to try to get approval from insurance, we have to submit pre-approval request, and we have to tell them the condition that we're trying to treat, all right? And we have to tell them the ICD diagnostic code for that condition. So I suspect what she may be saying is that she needs the diagnostic code of the condition, and that would be, for your situation, she should try the diagnostic code for Babesia. It's an ICD-10 code for Babesia. She should be able to look that up. I don't know it off the top of my head. And she should also probably submit it with the ICD-10 code for Lyme, all right? Now, it's very possible that if you have a new insurer relative to when you were with the other doctor, that maybe this newer insurer may block it. I have increasing problems with that. What I am doing these days, though, is if I've got people that need Alinea and they cannot afford it and their insurance company will not pay for it, I am using a compounding pharmacy in Canada that will ship across the border to my patients. Now, the only problem with compounded Alinea, it may not work as effectively as the pharmaceutical version that you get off the shelf here in the United States. In Canada, they don't sell it. It's not sold out of regular pharmacies, but the compounding pharmacy that I use can get the ingredients and put it together themselves. It still works, but it probably not quite as strong as the regular one, okay? So in terms of prescription diagnostic code, there's what she may be referring to is she has to provide to the insurance company the diagnostic code of the condition she's using to treat the Alinea with, all right? And that would be an ICD-10 code for Lyme and the ICD-10 code for Babesia. She can easily look those up. I don't know those off the top of my head. I let my computer tell those to me usually, but I think that may be what you're talking about. All right? All right. Thanks for the question, Jane. Oh, so looks like we don't have a full question there. Hi, Regina. Maybe we'll find your question later on. Hello, let's see, Rita. Hi, hello, Dr. Ross. My main symptoms from Lyme involve joints, both elbows and knees. I have been tested for BART and mycoplasma while on antibiotics and while just on herbs. Which co-infections do joint symptoms go with? And do you have any treatment thoughts? Okay, so joint pains are usually associated with Lyme. They may be associated with Bartonella. Bartonella sometimes can give joint pains too. If you've been treating for some time and I don't think it's coming from your mycoplasma, just so you know that. If you have been treating Lyme for some time and joint pain is not getting better, one of the things I will try with my patients is to have them start taking glucosamine sulfate. Glucosamine sulfate is a building block for cartilage. One thing that happens, I think, inside of our joints is Lyme, in its quest to survive, likes to bury itself deep in tissues to get far away from oxygen of our blood, all right? So Lyme likes to live inside joints, likes to live on muscle and tendon coverings, ligaments, scar tissue, nerve coverings. It is designed to survive as a masterful survivor, and it gets away from oxygen because oxygen in blood can kill it, okay? But to get in deep into tissues where oxygen can't reach it, it releases enzymes that can help it burrow, that can help damage tissue so it can get in there. And I think it can make an enzyme that will help break down cartilage. So what I have found in some of my patients that have pain that just isn't getting better in their joints as we treat their Lyme and all their other Lyme symptoms are getting better and it's just the joint pain that remains, about 60, 70% of the time, they will get benefit from trying glucosamine sulfate to rebuild the cartilage in the joint. And you have to give it at least a 2 to 3 month trial, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And do not waste your money getting a variety that is a one-time 1,500 milligram a day variety. The glucosamine sulfate seems to work best if it's taken frequently to maintain a pretty good drug level in the blood, all right? So glucosamine sulfate as a 500 milligram pill, 1 pill 3 times a day. Try it for 2 to 3 months. The other thing that you ought to do is make sure you're on some good anti-inflammatories designed to lower cytokine inflammation chemicals. And that is not Tylenol. That is not Motrin or ibuprofen or Aleve. Those or aspirin, those do not lower inflammation cytokines. They lower a different kind of inflammatory chemical. So what lowers inflammatory chemicals that get created in Lyme, those cytokines, my favorite thing to take is curcumin. Curcumin is a component of turmeric that gets inside of white blood cells and limits their ability to produce these inflammation chemicals called cytokines, okay? And so you want to do curcumin. I prefer to have my patients take a liposomal variety. Liposomal means it's microscopically wrapped in fat, and microscopically wrapping it in fat helps increase the absorption out of the stomach. The product I like that is a liposomal product is a product by Thorne called Mariva 500 SF. The SF stands for sunflower. That's where they're getting the fats that microscopically wrap around the curcumin. So it's 500 milligrams 3 times a day also for that. And then the glucosamine sulfate, as I said, is 500 milligrams 3 times a day. Okay. All right. So many of you may be wondering at this point, how do I know where to go get those supplements that are good quality ones? All right. So I'm just going to do a quick screen share here. To be a high quality supplement. All right. So supplements, you've got to be careful when you work with supplements that you're using products that have done brands that are known to find the most active ingredients and also brands that are not using a bunch of artificial fillers that could hurt a person. Okay, you got to be careful about that. All right. So this is my store. This is Marty Ross MD Supplements. This is where my patients at the Healing Arts Partnership here in Seattle get their supplements. Anyone can order from here. But if you're looking, you're wondering, what's a good product for glucosamine? What you can do is just come here. Just type in glucosamine. All right. And so what I like carrying is a product by, my main product is this one by Thorne. That is a good quality product that has glucosamine in it. Okay. Thorne is a good manufacturer. If you're looking at which manufacturers do I think are high quality, here's the list of them right here. Okay. But take a look. This is the store where my patients get things. We're more than glad to help you if you need to find stuff from us as well too. All right. Let me go back here. Thank you for that question. I hope that gives you some help too. Key to glucosamine sulfate, give it time. You got to give it the 2 to 3 months to see if it's going to work. Okay. Hello, Bobby. Let's see. Hi. I've taken the Lufenoron twice, both for one day, and ended up very jittery and could hardly sleep. Have your other patients experienced this? I waited the 11 days between doses. Also, you recommend ashwagandha during the day for energy. My herbalist says I should take it at night to calm down. So, I disagree with your herbalist. So ashwagandha, everyone, is an herb, a Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine herb that is used because it's been used or observed through centuries, thousands of years actually, to help improve people's energy. All right. And so when we look at, there haven't been any human studies done looking at it, but we have animal studies. And what the animal studies tell us is that they help the adrenal glands work better by promoting better production of cortisol and DHEA, the hormones made by the adrenal glands, and also by helping your thyroid work better. Okay. Generally, what I find is ashwagandha is too stimulating to take at night. Now, some of the herbalists will believe that if you give an adrenal supplement at night, it helps put a person to sleep. I find the opposite. Ashwagandha I choose as my main herb to support the adrenals because it tends to come in energy neutral, though. It tends not to be what I call a hot herb. It's not generally going to make a person really jittery. But even so, there's an occasional person that if you use it too late in the daytime, it may keep you awake at night. All right. So generally, I have my people take their my patients take their ashwagandha in the morning, right when they get up, and between 1 and 2 in the afternoon. And I find that a better way to give better energy in the daytime. I don't like using it for sleep. I know some herbalists will do it that way. I just don't find it to be that effective in Lyme. Okay. All right. In terms of the Lufenoron, so Lufenoron, everyone, if you're not familiar with it, is an insecticide. Yes, we use insecticides in Lyme. What it is a inhibitor of the production of a fiber compound called chitin. Yeast that live in us, that live in our intestines, have a fiber covering on the outside made up of chitin. And Lufenoron blocks the ability of yeast to repair its chitin, so yeast will die, basically. All right. Now, it's manufactured by the industry as an insecticide because the brown shells on various insects also is rich in chitin. There have not been any human safety studies done with the Lufenoron. There are chimpanzee studies that have been done that suggest that it is safe. All right. Now, I've used it in probably about 150, 200 people as a last resort medicine when nothing else is working for yeast, because I still consider experimental. We don't have human safety studies, although I still think it's safe. And I've only had one person, Bobby, develop a side effect. And it, unfortunately, was a person that developed an allergic reaction to it. And the problem with that, with Lufenoron is an extremely fat-soluble medicine. When things are fat soluble, that means they get into our fatty tissue, and once they're in there, they stay for a long time. Animal studies say that this stuff has a half-life, the amount of time to get out of you, of 1 to 2 months once it's in you, all right? So she had an ongoing allergic reaction for a good couple months, all right? But in using Lufenoron with that 150 to 200 people, I have not had anyone describe a side effect like you've had, okay? That's not to say it's not giving you that side effect, because there's a Marty Ross rule in medicine. And this is the Marty Ross rule in medicine. My rule is anything can happen to anyone with anything. All right. Now, that may sound kind of silly, but, when we look for prescription medicines, for instance, I can pull out a drug resource book that will tell me what are the side effects we can expect with certain medicines. But you know what? People sometimes get side effects that aren't even on that list. That's the anything can happen to anyone with anything. All right. So I would try it again, Bobby, and just see, does it make you jittery again? And if it does, then it definitely is the medicine. And this just may not be something you're going to be able to take. Okay. All right. For those of you that want to know more about Lufenoron, where you can get it, if you're having yeast that's hard to treat, or if you want to see ways that are recommended to treat yeast, if you get too many yeast in the intestines, I'm just going to do a quick screen share here. There is a chapter I have called Yeast. It's in my Germ Control and More column here. All right, so there it is. So Lufenoron, an experimental yeast treatment, okay? So in here I tell you where you can order it. I tell you how to take it. And it works about 80-85% of the time is what I see. But I tend to use it if everything else that I know to try fails, all right? So take a look at this article. It gives you more information then. All right, let's go back here. All right, Bobby. So I hope that gives you some information. I'm sorry, other than just saying I think it's a side effect, I don't have any other good ideas for you on that one. All right, good luck to you. Hello, Sarah. Let's see. Thank you so much for all you do for us, Limeys. Is it okay to eat beets? Yes. Well, yes and no. So beets are great. I mean, they have a lot of good chemicals in them and antioxidants that's good to support the liver. Okay, so I like beets. Beets also have what is known as a high glycemic index, meaning that they're rich in sugar. So if you happen to be a person that's getting a lot of yeast infections, you may need to cut down on your beets. But if that has not been an issue for you, then I think it'd be okay to eat the beets, okay? Because again, beets is going to be good for supporting the liver as well too, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Sarah. Thank you for that question. Hello, Lori. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Been on your full kill Lyme herbal protocol, up to 30 drops for a month. Have had occasional burning headache and itchy scalp. Is this a sign that I'm killing Lyme? Not necessarily. It could be side effect too. I haven't seen it as a common side effect though. Usually a good sign that you're killing Lyme will be a worsening of the underlying symptoms. So there is a reaction called a herxheimer reaction. I think many of you are familiar with that. But what a herxheimer reaction is as the immune system sees the dead bug parts, it winds up releasing cytokines, those inflammatory chemicals that I was telling you about. And those cytokines make all your Lyme symptoms worse. So let me step back for a minute. All right. So when somebody has Lyme disease, the reason they feel poorly, most of the symptoms are actually due to the immune system reaction against the germ. And what the immune system does when it sees Lyme is white blood cells that see Lyme make a group of chemicals called cytokines, all right? And cytokines are good and bad. On the good side, cytokines cause more white blood cells to be made. They draw those white blood cells to where the infection is, and they help them work better. But often in Lyme, our immune systems don't do a good job, and they wind up making too many cytokines. And too many cytokines give you poor sleep. They interfere with how your hormone systems work. They give you fatigue. They can give you muscle wasting. They make you hurt all over, make it so you can't think. Essentially, most Lyme symptoms have a basis of being excess cytokine symptoms, okay? All right, so all of those symptoms, the symptoms that you generally have, would be excess cytokine symptoms, right? And as we start killing Lyme, the immune system will see the dead bug parts and make more cytokines. So often it's a worsening of what is already there. So if these kind of symptoms you're talking about here are the ones you regularly experience, then yeah, that may be a sign that you're killing it, okay? But if not, it just may be a side effect or symptoms are just showing up for some unknown reason, all right? Now, one thing about herxing, a lot of people like to wear their herx like a badge of honor, like it means they're doing something, okay? But I will tell you, 10% of people, in my experience, can go through Lyme germ treatments and not herx and still get better, all right? So if you don't herx, it doesn't mean that the antibiotics or the antibiotic herbs are not working. It just means you're not herxing, all right? So you don't have to herx to get better. Secondly, you got to be careful with herxes. If they get too aggressive, if you get knocked down too much, that kind of excess amount of cytokines may be suppressing the immune system and sometimes can cause nerve damage and injury to the body as well too. So there's also the kind of person that sees me that says, I don't care how bad you make me, just hit me as hard as you can. I want to get better. And I have to pull those people back often and say, whoa, we got to slow down here a little bit because bad herxes could actually injure you permanently, all right? So we have to be careful about that as well too. Okay. Anyhow, Lori, thank you for that question. Hello, Catherine. Let's see. Had severe neural Lyme, LTT now negative, head antibiotics, ozone, apheresis, hyperthermia, low DAO, sensitivity to pollen mites, MVOCs, mold missing detox genes. Still have strong burning pain, soreness, stiffness throughout body and brain, and severe cognitive restrictions from Lyme. What should I do? Hold on here just a minute, Catherine. Okay. So first of all, so Catherine basically is a person that's got a lot of problems going on because of Lyme. All right. The LTT is a test to see if you still have active Lyme, and some of my colleagues, it's called an ELISpot test. It's literally measuring to see if you have a type of T white blood cell that reacts against Lyme proteins when it's exposed to them. And if it does react in a lab against those Lyme proteins, that's a sign that you've had Lyme in you, all right? And some of my colleagues falsely believe that if it is negative, that Lyme is gone. All right. So just because your LTT is negative does not prove that the Lyme germ is gone. It just may mean that at that time, your T cells aren't responding. It doesn't mean that the Lyme still isn't there. It's possible that our immune responses will go in and out. If Lyme is still in there, it sometimes releases chemicals that suppress the immune system so it can't respond, meaning that even your LTT will be negative. So one thing I want to caution you about is just because that LTT is negative does not mean you still don't have active Lyme germ, all right? Maybe you don't, but it doesn't prove that you don't, okay? So one thing I would be clear about, especially if you're still having quite a bit of neurologic symptoms as you're describing, is there still is that possibility that Lyme is there. The other thing I would suggest is that there's a possibility of having Bartonella activity if you've got a lot of neurologic issues still too, all right? And so if I were to give you the best answer, probably I'd want to visit with you. I have a way of doing that where you can visit with me online so that I could ask you lots of questions so I can figure out clinically, is Lyme still there and is Bartonella there? I can't tell because you're not telling me the antibiotics you used, whether they did treatment for Bartonella as well too. So Bartonella, I just want to make a note about that. Bartonella is another one of the Lyme co-infections. It's known for giving a lot of neurologic compromise, including difficulty thinking. To treat it requires 4 to 6 months of usually at least 2 antibiotics that target against it. How do you know if you have Bartonella? Well, you can't rely on testing. We estimate that there are 30 different strains of urination, even if you don't have a bladder infection. Neurologic hypersensitivities like light sensitivity, sound sensitivity, touch sensitivity, air hunger, if you feel like you can't get enough air in from time to time. Sometimes people with Bartonella have excessive day sweating, and sometimes people with Bartonella have a rash that looks like scratch marks or stretch marks, okay? I'll show you an article that you can look at in a minute to go back through all those symptoms that I just said, all right? But if you want to make sure that Bartonella was considered and if it was there, was treated, I'll show you my article about which antibiotic regimens I recommend as the best ones for that too, okay? All right, the other thing that I would do in your situation with that kind of neurologic kind of compromise you have is fix the mitochondria in your body and in your brain, all right? So every one of our energy factories or every one of our cells, including our nerves, have energy factories called mitochondria. And when we get severe neurologic compromise or we have bad body pain or bad fatigue, that means that our mitochondria aren't working well. Now, usually for most people, if you just start treating the infections, and as you treat the infections, the mitochondria, the energy factories in every one of our cells will start to repair themselves. But if you've already treated for a while, and usually I say that's like 6 months, 9 months, and you still are not recovering with your energy, or you still have severe neurologic compromise, then I suggest repairing mitochondria. Now, by some estimates, there are 300 to 400 mitochondria in a cell. Mitochondria have a covering that is made up of a layer of fat, a double layer of fat. Now, when you have chronic infection, what happens is there is an overproduction of oxidizing agents in the body, and those oxidizing agents can damage the covering of fat membranes, including your nerve cell membrane, which is a layer of fat, and your mitochondria membrane as well, too. So I like to fix that membrane. And the way that I fix it is with a supplement called NT Factor. NT Factor has in it the various fats that make up nerve cell membranes and mitochondria membranes, okay? And you take it as 2 pills 3 times a day for 2 months. And then after 2 months, you decrease it down to 1 pill 3 times a day for 4 months. Now, there has been studies done looking at it, and the studies show that people have average energy improvements of 40% actually by 2 months, and an overwhelming number report clearer thinking, all right? In addition to doing the NT Factor, as I just said, I would take glutathione. Glutathione is a very powerful antioxidant that is made in every one of our cells, and it fixes things from the inside, all right? So NT Factor is fixing your nerve cells from the outside and the mitochondria from the outside. Glutathione helps fix from the inside. When we have nerve injury or we have cell injury, our bodies, or those cells, may exhaust their own glutathione supply. And if we give more glutathione, that can help, okay? Glutathione also is used by the liver to detox, and glutathione as an antioxidant helps lower cytokines too. I was talking about that earlier, right? So glutathione, the way I like to use that, you can take it in an oral form, but if you do it orally, you need to make sure that it's a liposomal, microscopically wrapped form. And for that, I like a product called Trifortify. There's a Trifortify Orange now and a Trifortify Watermelon. It's made by Research Nutritionals, which is the same company that makes the NT Factor. And I like to use my glutathione as 5 milliliters 1 time a day. All right. Third thing I like to do is to be on coenzyme Q10 in situations like this. Code Q10, I usually use as 400 milligrams twice a day. Now, you do not want to use CoQ10 if you're on Malarone, atovaquone, or Mepron. You just do not want to be on it because it interferes with how the atovaquone found in Mepron and found in Malarone works, all right? So you don't want to do that, all right? The last thing I would do about mitochondrial repair, which helps nerve repair, is if you do not eat red meat periodically in your diet, you may be short on something called carnitine. Carnitine is used by mitochondria to carry fat from the outside of the mitochondria to the inside, where it's burned through a bunch of chemical reactions into cell fuel, all right? And if you don't have adequate red meat intake, you're not going to have enough carnitine. You're not going to be able to bring the fat to the inside of the mitochondria. So for that, you would do acetyl L-carnitine, 500 milligrams twice a day for a month, then decrease it to 500 milligrams one time a day, all right? So you got to fix that. You need to consider whether you still should be treating Lyme, and that LTT is not always an accurate way of telling if the germ is still there. And then finally, I would definitely make sure that you treat it for Bartonella, at least from what you've described here with the burning pain, which is neurologic, severe cognitive dysfunction. That still sounds like you might have Bartonella there that might not have been considered too, okay? All right, those would be the things I would consider next, even before you look at your cholestyramine that you mentioned here, the CSM. All right. So, and if you want more direct input from me, feel free. I'm just giving you generalities. Obviously, if you were to tell me more about the antibiotic history and I knew more about all of your symptoms, I might come up with even a more detailed game plan for you. Let me do a quick screen share here, and I want to show you something. I think I'm going to show you something. Let's see here. There. And in here, I'm going to show you a few things. Okay, so under chapters, there is a tab called How to Diagnose. And if you read here, you're going to see an article down here that I have called It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia. In here is where I list out all the symptoms that make you think about Bartonella, and I even describe why testing isn't that useful, okay? All right, then to treat Bartonella, if you should have it, you want to look in my chapter called Infection Treatment Plans. And in here, I have an article called Kills Bartonella, a Brief Guide, where I lay out various 2 antibiotic regimens that would take care of Bartonella for you, okay? All right, and then let's see here. The other thing that you might, finally, in the chapters, look under Brain and Nerves, and there's an article called Brain Fog and Lyme Disease. You can fix it. The recommendations here are basically what I just went through with you to help with your energy and to get your thinking back, okay? And then finally, for those of you that need some extra help that you cannot find here in my articles or in these live webinars, you could go ahead and click on my online consult up here. And this describes my consult service, okay, where I can visit with you online and give you treatment recommendations. Read all about it here. Scroll all the way down. Read everything about it, okay? And if you think that this is something that interests you, go ahead and get contact with us, and I tell you how to do it there, all right? Just be aware, though, with this consult service, I am not able to prescribe. What I can in my note that I supplied to you, it's a doctor's visit note, and you can take it to your physician and see if they will prescribe those medicines or order testing if we need to do it. But I can at least give you a good idea what I think is going on too. All right. Good luck to you, Catherine. All right. Hello, Colleen. Let's see. Hold on a minute. I got to take a sip of water here. Hi, Colleen. So it looks like you, if you've been participating in the full webinar tonight, you heard me address this earlier, which your question is it true that herxing too much can damage your tissues? And remember, I said you don't want to over-herx. It can damage your tissues. The answer is yes, it can. Can that be repaired? Yeah, I think in most instances, you got to figure out what the injury is. So are you more fatigued from it? Do you have more pain? Do you have more neurologic dysfunction? Then I would take all the steps that I just outlined for helping that the person who asked the last question fix her brain. Okay, all of those steps would be the things that you might want to do. Okay, all right. Good luck, Colleen. Hello, Terry. Let's see. What are the differences between Lyme disease and tick-borne relapsing fever? And can you have Bartonella with tick-borne relapsing fever? Okay. So Lyme disease is caused by Borrelia burgdorferi and Borrelia various strains of Borrelia. Okay, I can't even keep up with all of them. And then relapsing fever is another strain of Borrelia that is different than the common strains that we call Lyme. In terms of how we treat, essentially the same treatment, though. Okay. Let's see. Can you have Bartonella with tick-borne relapsing fever? Yes, you can, because it is also a tick-borne infection. All right. And any tick that gives you Lyme or gives you tick-borne relapsing fever can transmit other tick-borne infections like Bartonella, like Ehrlichia, like anaplasma, like Babesia. All right. So yeah, you can. All right. Thanks for that question, Terry. Hello, Lori. Let's see. Also, can the drops cause abdominal bloating or is it the Lyme? There was a first part to your question that I think I answered earlier, and I'm trying to remember. If this is about Banderol and Cemento, they can sometimes give bloating, but usually if you're getting bloating on the Banderol Cemento, it often means that you're probably starting to get too many yeast living in your intestines. In terms of figuring out if you have too many yeast living in your intestines, I would have you take a look at the chapter I have on how to diagnose too many yeast, or the article I have on that. Let me do a quick screen share here for you. Take a look in the chapters under, I would just go to the yeast tab here, and there's an article here called A Silent Problem, Do You Have Yeast? Take a look at this. I walk through how you figure out and consider if you might have too many yeast in your intestines. And then if you do, there's the article here called Kills Yeast, a Brief Guide, which is the steps you can use to actually get rid of those yeast. Some of those are herbal, some of them are prescriptive, but it gives you some ideas on that. Okay? All right. Go back here. Thank you for that question, or that follow-up on your question. And Mark says, hi, Dr. Marty. Hello, Mark. I think I know which Mark you are, but if not, and I don't know which one you are, hello to you too. Hello, Steve. Let's see. Awesome service. Thanks, Dr. Ross. You're welcome. Thank you, Steve. I have Lyme and get brain and face vibrations. Any thoughts? It started after an ozone IV, then glutathione IV. I know you are a fan of glutathione. Some say as a single thiol molecule, it may have transported mercury into my brain. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not one of those people that buys the whole you can transport mercury into the brain theory thing. I just want you to, I don't totally buy that. I doubt if that's what happened. Okay. So vibrations, that sensation of vibration, Steve, is a neurologic symptom. Okay. That it's a neurologic agitation. All right. And the one thing that you should be aware of is IV, oxidizing agent or oxidizing medicine, which would be things like IV ozone, IV hydrogen peroxide, high dose vitamin C. You can do vitamin C is like 30 to 50 gram IV infusions. That's an oxidizing agent at that dose. Yeah. So vitamin C that we think of as an antioxidant, lower doses, actually at high doses turns into an oxidizing agent. All right. So oxidizing agents damage membranes. They damage fat membranes. All right. Now they damage the fat membrane of germs, which is partly how they kill germs and infections, and they damage the DNA of those germs too. Now, we as humans, our normal cells and our nerves and everything are not as susceptible to damage from ozone, but it can still damage even our nerve coverings, which is a double layer of fat too, all right? Now, the reason we're not as susceptible as infections is that we make antioxidants in our cells that can help prevent and repair some of that injury. But if you started getting some of these vibrations after ozone, I would think that you may have had some injury to the nerve membrane, which is a double layer of fat that can be injured by ozone, all right? And that basically that needs to be repaired. Glutathione, which is good for nerve repair, is going to fix nerves from the inside, but what you may benefit from is fixing it from the outside as well too. And the way to do that is with the NT factor that I was mentioning in my previous discussions tonight, okay? So let me just do a quick screen share because in case you missed that and you want to go back and look at it here, I'll just do a quick screen share about two things I'm going to show you. Let's turn that back on. Tab and to the brain and nerves. All right, so I would take look at my brain and fog and Lyme disease or the neuropathy repair, heal that tingling, numbness, and pain. Basically, I give you the similar advice in both of these articles about how to repair nerve injury. Okay, and that would include doing the NT factor. That would include doing coenzyme Q10 that I mentioned in both of these articles. And that would include doing some glutathione as well too. All right. Okay. Now I've mentioned the NT factor a couple times. All right. So I'm back in Marty Ross MD supplements here. Let me go back to the. All right. All right. So in terms of NT factor, there's a couple supplements I like that have it in it. One is called NT factor Energy by Research Nutritionals. They also make it as part of a product called ATP Fuel. The big difference between these two products, they're both good products, is that the ATP Fuel also has coenzyme Q10 in it. The NT factor does not, okay? I tend to like using the NT factor and use CoQ10 separately if we're going to use it. But anyhow, that's where you can find that NT factor that I've mentioned a couple times here tonight. All right. Let's go back here. I hope that gives you some ideas. And good luck to you. Hello, Mark. Let's see. Hold on here just a minute. Let's see, I've had Lyme for 5 years, tried antibiotics, now herbs, have lots of stomach upset, gas, bloating, and am losing weight as unable to eat as symptoms worsen after eating. Any suggestion? Huge thanks. Mark, consider that you might have too many yeast in your intestines. All right, so what happens is our intestines are full of bacteria and yeast, all right? And that's when we have healthy functioning intestines. And they keep each other under control. If you've been on antibiotics, and also if you have Lyme, which suppresses the immune system and makes it easier for yeast to grow, being on antibiotics knocks down the good bacteria in the intestines, which makes it easier for yeast to grow too. If you start developing too many yeast in your intestines, it's going to give you a lot of the gassiness, bloating, upset stomach. And if you're getting a lot of gassiness and bloating, you're probably not eating as much, and therefore you're going to start having low calories, which is going to make things worse too. Right now, when you get too many yeast in the intestines, the immune system sees them and also makes too many cytokines. Remember I said Lyme symptoms are too many cytokines. So often people that have too many yeast in their intestines also have another source of cytokines, and it can make it look like their Lyme got worse when in fact it's just that they got too many yeast in the intestines, okay? The other thing that yeast do when you have them growing too much in the intestines is they make a toxin called gliotoxin. Gliotoxin can give you some of that brain fog, can increase fatigue, and also toxins released by yeast interact with the skin and sometimes make it so you get acne, okay? So I think of too many yeast when people have gassiness, bloating, feel worse after eating because you feed your yeast and you feel worse for it. If you're a woman, vaginal itching, vaginal discharge, increased sugar cravings, thrush in your mouth, which is white patches in your mouth, difficulty swallowing, because if you get too many yeast in your food pipe, it's going to be hard to swallow. It's going to feel like things are catching there. And acne or worsened skin rashes due to the toxins interfering there, all right? So one common thing I'll find in my treatments, and that my patients know too well, because I I screen for yeast. I ask questions about yeast in every one of my visits. Is if I've got a patient that has been doing better and then they suddenly get worse, 80 to 90% of the time in my experience is because too many yeast moved in the intestines. And if you do things to deal with the yeast, that will knock the cytokines back down so that then this worsening will reverse itself and will go away. Okay. So again, a big clue or thing to think about, everyone, is if you're doing better and then suddenly start doing worse, or if you did a lot of antibiotics, were doing great, and then even half a year or a year later, you start doing worse, think yeast first and figure out whether you have that. And if you do, treat it. And often that's going to turn everything back around. Usually once you get on a good yeast treatment, by around 3 weeks into it, most of the decline you had from those yeast will go away and you're back up to that better level that you were at before the decline. All right? All right. Mark, I showed everyone earlier tonight the articles I have about yeast, but if you did not see that, go to the Treat Lyme book at treatlyme.net. Look on the chapter called Yeast, and I tell you there's an article in there about how to treat yeast, and there's also an article in there about how to diagnose yeast as well, too. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Val. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Could you explain in general terms how to determine when it is time for a patient to finish with one treatment protocol and move on to a different one? Thanks for sharing your insights. Part of the question I have is, what do you mean by change protocols? Do you mean like change from one group of prescription antibiotics to another group of prescription antibiotics, or one group of prescription antibiotics to an herb? Or do you mean stop using germ killers altogether and try hyperbaric oxygen, okay, for instance, all right? So I'll just give you some generalities about the changing of the antibiotics, all right? So, and for the sake of this discussion, when I use antibiotics, I mean herbal or prescription antibiotics, all right? So generally, when I'm depends on the infection. So with Bartonella, generally, when you treat for Bartonella, it takes about 4 to 6 months to get rid of that infection. And by about 1 to 2 months into a Bartonella infection, you should start seeing lifting of the Bartonella symptoms, all right? So I went through that list of symptoms earlier tonight, but let's just say your Bartonella is giving you bad anxiety. By 1 to 2 months into treatment, that anxiety better be lifting. It may not be all gone, but it should be lifting. Now, if it is, I'm going to treat with that same 2 antibiotics I'm using for your Bartonella. I'll probably use it for 4 to 6 months and then stop, okay? However, if by 1 to 2 months into a BART treatment, my BART symptoms aren't lifting, I'm going to change the antibiotics I'm using for BART to another set of antibiotics that are supposed to work, okay? All right, Babesia, same idea. With Babesia, an average length of a Babesia treatment is 5 months, 4 to 5 months, all right? But by about 1 to 2 months into a Babesia treatment, you should be seeing a lifting in those Babesia symptoms like headaches and night sweats and panic attacks. Those things should be getting better by 1 to 2 months in. And if not, then it's time to change. If what you're doing is working, then you do a full 4 to 5 months of it, all right? With the Lyme germ, Lyme gets a little trickier. And the reason is at the beginning of a Lyme germ treatment, it can take time for things to turn the corner. There's been an unpublished study that looked at how quickly do people get better. And that study showed that by 3 months of treatment, 30% of people started to have improvements. I didn't say they were better. I said having improvements, okay? Just starting to feel a little bit better with energy, all right? So by 3 months of treatment, 30% of people start having improvements of their Lyme symptoms. By 6 months, 60% start having improvements of their Lyme symptoms. And by 9 months, 90% of people start having improvement in their Lyme symptoms, all right? So recovering from the Lyme germ portion of things is going to take longer. So generally with my Lyme treatments, I'm going to rotate at about 5 to 6 months if I'm not seeing any improvements to a different antibiotic regimen, all right? Now, I have to caution you. Some of my, you could make the argument that with Lyme, even though you're not seeing changes in symptoms, a clue that the antibiotic regimen you're working with works is if you get a herx reaction, all right? But remember, as I said earlier tonight, 10% of the time that people have Lyme, they don't get herx reactions, all right? So that's not even a solid guideline, all right? So generally with my Lyme germ treatments, I'm going to rotate a new set of antimicrobials, whether it's herbal or prescription, about every 6 months. Having said that, though, the herbal regimens, I sometimes will push out even 9 to 12 months because I find they tend to last longer in terms of how they work, okay? All right. So I hope I answered in the realm of what your question was, which is about what to do with the germ killers. All right. How often do you switch those? Okay. All right. Good luck, Val. Thank you for that question. Oh, let's see. We already answered that one earlier tonight. Let's see here. Hello, Bran. Let's see. Wondering what your advice would be for treatment of viruses after long-term treatment of Lyme already completed and apparently cleared of Lyme. Positive Armin lab results for current cellular activity against HHV6, cytomegalo, and Epstein-Barr virus, also showing weak current cellular activity against, let's see here, Ehrlichia and anaplasmosis. Would antivirals be effective, and do you have any suggestions on the best treatment for anaplasma still showing up after already having had long-term minocycline twice daily? All right, so I'll talk about the viruses in a minute, okay? So as I mentioned earlier tonight, I do not like using the ELISpot from Armin Labs, as some of my colleagues are using, as a means of seeing whether they're done with the treatment or not. So the LTT, the ELISpot that Armin does for Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, Anaplasma, Ehrlichia, I don't think we can use to say whether we're done or whether something is still there. All right, and that is because even so, the ELISpot is measuring whether you have T cell activity against a germ, and that T cell activity may still be there even months, even years after you get the germ out. I don't think it's an accurate indicator. All right, so when it comes to Ehrlichia and anaplasma, one of the hallmark symptoms of having them is a lot of myalgias. But Lyme gives a lot of myalgias too. But if you're still having some myalgias, maybe they're still there. But usually about 2 weeks to a month of a tetracycline is going to be enough to take care of those. And I generally do not think of those as being chronic infection once you use an adequate time period of a tetracycline, which you have, all right? And so again, I don't think you can use the test in this. And I do think that about 90% of the time or more, the tetracyclines do work. And so if you're still having a lot of myalgias, I would look at Lyme possibly still being active, actually. Okay. All right. Or maybe chronic viruses. Okay. Now, about the chronic viruses, again, I don't think we have, through Armin or other labs, so Armin would be doing either antibody testing or the ELISpot against those viruses. Again, the ELISpot measures whether you have white blood cell T cell activity, which again will probably be there. So the problem with the viruses is this: the Epstein-Barr and the human herpes virus type 6 and the cytomegalovirus are common viruses found in healthy people. All right. If we were to pull 100 people off the street and measure whether their immune systems have made antibodies or whether their immune systems have T cells that are acting against these viruses, we would find about 10 to 20% have immune system activity against these viruses. And these are healthy people, okay? So the immune system is designed to keep these common viruses that we get their respiratory viruses. Our immune system is designed to keep them under control. So just having immune system activity, which means T cell activity on an ELISpot or elevated antibodies, does not prove that those germs are active, that your immune system has lost the battle and that they've become out of control, okay? So you cannot determine that from an Armin lab. You cannot determine that from antibody testing against these viruses. So how do I go about doing it? Well, the way that I go about doing it is I use a test called a nagalase. Nagalase is an enzyme that is made in the skin of viruses. It's also made in cancer cells. And if you have cancer, sometimes it'll be elevated. Or if you have active chronic virus infections, a nagalase can be elevated too. And I usually will treat, if the nagalase is about 0.8 to 1 or higher, I will treat for chronic virus infections, all right? So the lab that does a nagalase test is here in the States. It's called Health Diagnostics. They're based out of New Jersey. I think it's about a $95 test. That's what I use to guide me on my viruses. I do not do the antibody testing. I do not do the ELISpot testing, okay? In terms of what do I like to use, my chronic antivirus regimen is to use olive leaf extract. I'll do a 500 milligrams. I start at 1 pill 3 times a day. After a week, if you haven't herxed, I'll go up to 2 pills 3 times a day. And a week later, if you haven't herxed, I'll go up to 3 pills 3 times a day, all right? And you want to remain on that for about 6 months, okay? The other thing that I like to do with those treatments is I like to use a group of chemicals called transfer factors. Transfer factors are made by the detective part of the immune system to turn on the army part of the immune system to fight the viruses. And there is a transfer factor mix by Research Nutritionals called transfer factor plasmic. That's PLASMYC. And I would do 1 pill twice a day on that. And then I also like to use those 2 things would probably be enough. If you want to go even one step further, you can do more things to turn on your T cells, and that would be to use a product called ProBoost. It's a thymic gland protein A. Thymus gland is an immune system organ here that sits in our chest. When we're younger, it's semi-active. When we're older, it's not active at all. If you use thymic protein A, it turns on the cells that fight viruses as well too. All right. So olive leaf extract, 1,500 milligrams 3 times a day is what I work up to. I like doing immune support with transfer factor plasmic, and then I might use ProBoost, as I mentioned earlier too. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Actually, I'm going to do a quick screen share here. I just want to show you one thing here. Let's see. In the chapters on how to diagnose, and take a look at the article called When and How to Treat Chronic Viruses, a Brief Guide. This is where I talk about the nagalase. Also in here, you can get details about how I treat virus infections as well too. Okay? All right, let's see here. Thank you for the question. All right. Hello, Vonnie. Let's see. When lying down, I hear a hum, especially vibration in the right side. This correlates with head pressure feeling. Any thoughts of cause? So it's a right ear hum vibration sensation. You know, Vonnie, I don't have any good ideas for you on that one. I'm sorry. I'm stumped by that one. Good luck, okay? All right, let's see here. Hello, Gary. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you for the great webinars and the Lyme book. You're welcome. I'm doing really well, except that since I had Bell's palsy 6 years ago, I have to have a lot of really dumb accidents, like slam a door on my finger. My nervous system seems to go into minor shock. Any supplements to take? Thanks for everything. I'm just reading this again. Gary, I think I need to ask you a lot more questions to help figure out where to go with this question. I don't have a good, off the top of my head, response because I'm not clear exactly. I need more information from you about what you mean by dumb accidents and nervous system, minor or going into minor shock. So I'm not going to be able to answer that question for you right now. I'm sorry about that. Hello, B. Let's see. Hi and thank you. After 2 years, just found an LLMD and was being treated about 1 month when he was tragically killed in a car accident. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, actually, for you and for his family. Let's see. There is a nurse practitioner who worked with him, and I'm trying to arrange treatment. I was on clindamycin, 300 milligrams TID. He was going to call me the day he died to discuss rifampin. Sorry, two parts. I think you have a second part to your question. I have Lyme and Bart. My family practice doc will refill it, but will not order rifampin. Is it a good idea to stay on clindamycin until get into the other doc? I have to go back and look at your first part of your question. Just a minute here. Let's see here. All right. So the clindamycin can be used as an agent we can use to treat the spirochete form of Lyme. So Lyme lives in you in three forms. It lives as a spirochete. That thing looks like a corkscrew. It also lives inside your cells as a form of Lyme called intracellular Lyme. And then it lives as a microscopic cyst form of the germ too. Okay. Clindamycin is going to treat spirochete. The rifampin can be used in Lyme to treat for intracellular Lyme and cyst Lyme. So at this point, if you're using just a clindamycin alone and you don't have anything covering intracellular and cyst Lyme, what's happening is as you kill spirochete, that's causing some of it to move into the intracellular form and the cyst form. Okay. Ideally, you would want to be on clindamycin and something that could go after those, and that's what the rifampin would do. Not knowing how long it's going to take you to get in and see this doctor, you could consider doing a couple things, or actually one thing. You could consider treating your spirochete or your intracellular and cyst Lyme by looking at the herbal regimen I recommend for those for Lyme, the Otoba bark extract and the cat's claw. So basically, those two herbs, according to Petri dish experiments, actually treat all three forms of the Lyme germ. And they are useful at treating cyst Lyme, intracellular Lyme, spirochete Lyme, and even removing 100% of a slime layer that covers the Lyme germs called a biofilm. All right. And it would be okay to even mix the clindamycin along with the Otoba bark extract and the cat's claw. Now, Otoba is called Banderol. Cat's claw is Cemento. If you need more information about using those, if you want to consider that, take a look at the article that I've written on those. Let me show you that so you can make more of an informed choice as to whether you want to do this or not. The other thing I'd say, rifampin too, I can't tell by what you've written here, but sometimes we use rifampin also to treat Bartonella. But I assume if he was just using clindamycin alone, he was eventually going to cover you for intracellular and the cyst form of Lyme too. Okay? All right. Let me do a quick screen share here. Let's go ahead. I'm going to look at actually look under the, where is it? Anti-germs chapter here. And take a look at the article right here. Otoba bark extract and cat's claw tinctures, which is Banderol and Cemento. Okay? All right. Take a look at this. I talk about the science behind them as well as how to use them, how do you start them, and how to use them. Okay? All right. You can also find information about them in my treatment protocol as well, too. Okay. All right. Let's see you. I wish you well. Okay. Bye-bye. Hello, Patrick Cassie. Howdy, Dr. Ross. I, I like that. I like that howdy part. Could you explain a little bit about LDN? What is it good for and how does it work? Thank you. All right. So LDN stands for low dose naltrexone. LDN, low dose being the D and N being the naltrexone. Okay. So naltrexone is a pharmaceutical medicine that's manufactured in a 50 milligram dose. And when we use it as low dose naltrexone, it's at a lower dose. All right. So we use it anywhere from 1.5 to 4.5 milligrams. And because it's not manufactured that way, it has to be made up by a compounding pharmacist. Okay. And usually I'll start it at 1.5 milligrams one time a day. And every 2 weeks, I increase by 1.5 milligrams a day until I get to 4.5 milligrams a day. All right. So what does it do? Well, so naltrexone is a narcotic blocker, actually. So what we mainly use it for in medicine are for people that have heroin overdose and narcotic overdose. We, as humans, have our own natural narcotic system, okay? So our bodies make a group of chemicals called endorphins. And we can block the endorphin receptors with the naltrexone, all right? Now, what do endorphins do in us? Well, endorphins in us help manage pain, but they also regulate the immune system. And there is, and what happens with naltrexone is if we temporarily block the endorphin receptors in our immune system and in our pain system as well too, the brain doesn't like that. The brain tries to maintain balance. And what it does is it sends out a bunch of signals to the endorphin producing cells in the body to make more endorphins. So that as the naltrexone wears away, those endorphin receptors get flooded with all kinds of extra endorphins, which can help regulate the immune system. Okay. So what low dose naltrexone can be used best for are people that have autoimmune illnesses, meaning illnesses where the immune system has started to attack you, all right? And there are 4 autoimmune illnesses for which there is some limited science showing that low-dose naltrexone can help. Those 4 are multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, Crohn's disease, which is an arthritis condition of the intestinal tract, and Hashimoto's thyroiditis, or an autoimmune illness where the immune system attacks the thyroid, okay? So based on those studies, many of us also try it in other conditions for which there might be an autoimmune component, all right? So for some people with Lyme, when they've been treated for a while and they're not getting better, it may be that the immune system has started attacking the person, that the Lyme germ triggered the immune system to start attacking your own tissues, in which case the low-dose naltrexone may help. There are some that also believe that low-dose naltrexone can help turn on and overcome immune suppression as well too, okay? Now, what do I see with LDN? I will use it definitely when I've got somebody that has an arthritis condition along with Lyme. And by that, I mean like rheumatoid arthritis with Lyme, lupus arthritis with Lyme, scleroderma with Lyme, Sjogren's syndrome with Lyme, something that has an autoimmune component for sure, even Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis with Lyme, okay? I will use it in those situations. The other time I will use it is when I've got somebody with Lyme that over time is just not recovering adequately. At about 9 months or so, maybe even a year into treatment, I may do a trial of doing low-dose naltrexone as a means of seeing is part of their problem an autoimmune illness. Mind you, or actually just be aware, we do not have an autoimmune test, blood test that we can do to see is Lyme triggered your immune system to attack you? There is no such test, okay? So sometimes we just have to try the medicine to see if it's going to make a difference. And what I find with the low-dose naltrexone is when we use it when a person still has a lot of fatigue and achiness and treatment generally of Lyme is not working, we're 9 months, a year into treatment, I will try low-dose naltrexone, and I think it helps about 10 to 15% of the time. So this is not a panacea. This is nothing that's going to help a majority of people, but there are about 10 to 15% of people, I think, that do get some benefit from it. And if it does work, they get pretty dramatic benefits with it, all right? So you will know if it's working by around 2 to 3 months of using it. So give it a 2 to 3 month trial, see if it's going to work. It's something, again, that has to be manufactured by a compounding pharmacist, okay? And if you want to see more about it, I'm just going to do a quick screen share here. Go ahead here. All right. So there's under the chapters, if you look under the immune system, you'll see the article that I've written on this called low-dose naltrexone and Lyme. Does it help? Okay. All right. So take a look at that, and that will give you more of that information. All right. Oh, here's my art. I have an article here also on olive leaf extract. This is what I was telling you. We could use as an antiviral earlier. And then here's the article that I've written on thymic protein A to turn on your antivirus part of the immune system too. Okay. All right. Let me go back here. All right, Patrick. Thank you for that question. Good luck to you. Let's see. Bear with me here. I've got some people that posted questions twice, and we've answered that. I'm just trying to clean these out. All right, let's see here. Hi, Jane. Let's see. Do you have any suggestions about a protocol as a precaution since I was bit again? I don't know if the tick had any disease, but I really don't want to take any chances after having neurologic Lyme. Janie, in this kind of a situation, this is one of those situations where I say if you can get on prescription, actually, antibiotic, and I would look at probably doing a doxycycline or a minocycline twice a day. The reason I would do those is not only does it take care of the Lyme, but if that tick happened to have anaplasma, Ehrlichia, Bartonella, even Babesia, it could help get rid of those early in those infections as well too. The minnow would be 100 milligrams twice a day. The doxycycline, so it's minocycline. The doxycycline would be 100 milligrams as 1 or 2 twice a day. And I would do that for at least 4 weeks. I would couple that with grapefruit seed extract, 250 milligram pill, 1 pill twice a day, and that would be to treat the cyst form of Lyme. Keep in mind that the tetracyclines regarding Lyme treat spirochete Lyme and intracellular Lyme too. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Janie. And I don't blame you for being careful. If you had neurologic Lyme or you've had Lyme before, I think it makes absolute sense to protect yourself for what could be in a tick if you were to get that again. Okay? All right. Hello, Kate. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I've been on Ceftonir and Bactrim for about 3 months now for Lyme and Bartonella. Don't know if it's helping. So how long should I stay on it before changing? All right. So Kate, by now, so Bartonella, usually you should start having improvement in your Bart symptoms by 1 to 2 months. So if you're still having a lot of Bart symptoms, it's time to change now. All right. The other thing I would mention in your regimen, although Bactrim can sometimes be used as a single agent for Bartonella, Ceftonir doesn't do anything for Bartonella. And what I find that works best for Bartonella are to do 2 antibiotic regimens where you have 2 antibiotics attacking Bart. So with Bactrim, you could add rifampin to that. You could take Bactrim along with Biaxin or Zithromax or minocycline or doxycycline. You could even take it with Cipro, and that would turn it into a 2-drug regimen that's working against Bartonella. Also, regarding your Lyme treatment, the Ceftonir is going to be good about, or Ceftonir or Ceftin, I can't tell which one, they both do a similar thing, is going to be good against spirochete Lyme. Bactrim may help against some of the other forms of Lyme, but I think essentially you're not doing enough for intracellular and cyst Lyme on that regimen either. So you need to round that out. A simple way to make this a better treatment would be to stay on the Ceftin, stay on the Bactrim, add rifampin, and that then rifampin treats intracellular Lyme and cyst Lyme. Ceftin treats spirochete Lyme. There have been some recent studies that show that Bactrim used with Ceftin can help treat a type of form of spirochete that develops and a form of cyst Lyme that develops called a persister cell. It's a form of the germ that slows its metabolism way down and ignores the antibiotics. Bactrim may help with that, okay? And then Bactrim with rifampin becomes a really good 2-drug regimen for Bartonella for you as well, too. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. All right, everyone. That is it for me for tonight. It's been good visiting with you again. I have another one of these planned for next week, so I hope you'll go ahead and sign up for that. Here in a second, I will go ahead and transfer you over to that room, to the website, so that you can do that. And the other thing, too, if you haven't taken a chance yet to subscribe to the Treat Lyme book, I hope you would do that. When you do that, you're supporting these webinars as well, too. So tomorrow morning, keep your eyes out on your email. Somewhere around 6:30 in the morning, you should have an email from me with links to the recording. Okay? All right. Good night, everyone.